Magic. What's it all about? Is it art? Is it performance? Is it just entertainment? These are the types of questions that magicians have been asking themselves for ages. And one of the best known magicians of all time, or certainly of the modern era, has attempted to answer this question with a book. Here we are with David Copperfield's History of Magic. David Copperfield is extremely well known for his Vegas show. He's one of the hardest working people in magic, and he has gifted the magic community with a beautiful piece of art that explains to the lay public about the rich history of magic as an art form. So, what is it? It is a 250-page hardcover book, and there are two distinct versions of which I'm aware. The standard version of the book has 28 chapters, but there's also an exclusive Barnes & Noble edition with an additional chapter on the great entertainer and magician Orson Welles, who was a personal hero of David Copperfield's. I ended up going to Barnes & Noble to purchase the version that has the Orson Welles content because I wanted to provide you with the full details of the most expanded version. So what is the book? The book is sort of an origin story about magic. Clearly, David Copperfield is extremely passionate about the subject of magic. In fact, his name has basically become synonymous with magic, up there along the likes of Houdini. David Copperfield has amassed a huge collection of magic, and it started when he purchased the Melbourne Christopher collection a long time ago. After he acquired that, he began to expand his collection to build out the greatest museum on the history of magic ever conceived. He has finally accumulated enough stuff to have a massive warehouse on the outskirts of Las Vegas where he lives, and he has now invited us into this museum through the pages of this book. So if you want, you could think of this book as being one of those pamphlets that you get when you go into a museum that shows you where all the key exhibits are. Only it is a gorgeous 260 plus page pamphlet with full color pictures. You have some beautiful gold embossing on both the dust jacket and the cover of the book. So what exhibits do we get to see as we walk through David Copperfield's museum? Frankly, it would be impossible for me to go over all of the contents, so I'm just going to hit a few highlights, but know that there are many magicians covering many different time periods that you will find fascinating and informative. One of the coolest things about this book is that it bridges the gap very nicely between being for the lay public and for the magician, whether a neophyte or someone who's extremely experienced. If you are a neophyte, well then you're going to get an education on a lot of the artists who paved the way for us to perform today as magicians. Each chapter has a really nice hook that tells you why this person is important, kind of like History of Civ for magicians. Some of the old-time masters covered were names like Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, John Neville Maskelyne of Egyptian Hall fame and from England, Max Mellini, the diminutive Austrian magician who came to the United States and made a big name for himself and amassing a large fortune as he performed for presidents, royalty, and a veritable who's who of American capitalists. He also goes over some lesser-known names for the newcomers to magic, such as Bautier de Colta. Remember, each chapter about a particular magician is focused around an object that belongs in David Copperfield's collection, so it is a really neat way to tie back items with the history of the person, because after all, history and magic, they're all about people, not props. So while a magician may have made certain props famous, it wasn't the props that made the magician famous. And I think that's one of the key stories to David Copperfield's History of Magic. You're getting a front row seat to see how regular people who didn't come from wealthy backgrounds, they weren't trained for generations as magicians. In some cases, they kept the family business, but most of the time, they were a first-generation magician who got interested in magic and decided to pursue it and pursue it and pursue it until it became the passion that we all know and love as our art, the art of magic. Although he has a lot of older history with greats like Houdini and others, he also has some more contemporary items such as Dai Vernon's death list, an item of which I was completely unaware, so I was very interested to read about how that tied in with Di Vernon. Al Coran, Doug Henning, and even David Copperfield himself shares a little bit of his origin story with us and what inspires him and what are some of the biggest pieces of magic that he is most well known for. Within the pages, it was also great to see some diversity in the magical world that even from a long time ago, notable names such as Adelaide Herman and how she became a large name in the magic community. I wasn't that familiar with Dell Odell, so it was great to read how someone with so much joy and passion for magic succeeded in an era when it was not well known for women to be magicians. But she paved the way not only for other female magicians, but also for magicians as a whole to recognize that our art should be more than just an exclusive men's club. Although it may seem like there's a lot of rosy retrospect in these pages, David is very candid about not all magicians being honest entertainers. For example, Alexander, the man who knows, was a thief, a con man, and potentially a murderer, and some of that story is shared here in a very interesting way. Of course, many magicians are familiar with the story of Chung Ling Soo, the ostensibly Asian magician who, in fact, was not Asian at all, but American, but put on a silent act performing as a Chinese man. He's perhaps most well known for dying as part of the bullet catch trick, and David Copperfield has the rifle that fired that round in his museum collection. Even Harry Keller, the first Dean of American Magic and a household name in his time, has something that isn't quite what it seems about his performance and past. One of the parts I loved was the exhibits where David Copperfield is sharing how magicians historically learned magic. Hint, it's books. He talked about Professor Hoffman compiling secrets to publish when he had permission to do so. Of course, Reginald Scott and the Discovery of Witchcraft, which was one of the first English language books to teach magic, is talked about here, and David has a rare first edition of that book. Remember, a lot of these copies were burned back at the time they came out because people didn't want to believe what it said. And he talks about the mystery about who was the actual author of The Expert at the Card Table. Who was S.W. Erdnase? He gives the reader several of the theories, and although there aren't any specific conclusions, it's a great overview. There's also a really cool peek behind the curtains for the lay people who've never been to a magic shop. He talks about how there's always a back room for those who are into magic and can demonstrate some knowledge. And he even has some recreations of magic shops that were important to him, like Martinka's and Tannen's from New York City. He shares some information about his own museum in Vegas and how it looks, that the front mimics an old-fashioned clothing store, the kind that his dad ran. So who should get this? Who would be interested in David Copperfield's history of magic? No actual secrets are revealed in the book, so it makes a great coffee table style book. It's easy to read. You can pick it up and just read a chapter or two or whatever you desire. I read the entire thing in one day, so it's a really great and easy read. I think this makes a perfect Christmas gift for either the aspiring magician to help them understand the rich history of magic, some of the magical artists and their performance pieces, like fine paintings that you get to experience through the pages of this book. Of course, if you've already been into magic for quite a while, I still think that there's a lot to love about this book. I've been seriously into magic since 1999, and I found a lot to love. There were things that I learned I didn't know, such as the connections between magicians and the White House, and it's an absolutely gorgeous piece of art on its own. I think that David and the team of writers, artists, photographers that he worked with on putting this together did an outstanding job of making it digestible, easy to read. All of the chapters are concise. There aren't a lot of wasted words, and there's always a point to each one of the stories that will pull you in and have you reading to the end to understand the connection between these magicians, their props, and David's museum. In short, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a great book, and for $35, I think this is a fantastic deal. Now, if you want to get a better deal than what you can get retail, Don's Magic and Books is offering 10% off this week through the code Copperfield. So if you go to his website, www.donsmagicandbooks.com, I'll put something down in the description below. You can pick this book up for 10% off the lowest marked price, and while you're at it, anything else that you order from Don's, you can take 10% off exclusively with this code Copperfield. As far as the Orson Welles chapter, if you're really interested in Orson Welles, you may get something out of it. It's a fairly brief chapter, and I didn't think that there was anything too significant there, but your mileage may vary. Frankly, I think I could have been just as happy with the standard version of the book. Once you read a book like this, I think that it's easy to see how magic can be art. I don't think that it always is. It's up to each performer. So if you get this book, let the stories inspire you to take your magic to another level. Like I already said, David did a great job of pointing out that these were all normal individuals. Hardly any of them were brought up with a background in theater or performance arts. They learned some tricks, they went out and performed, and they practiced and practiced and practiced until they became a part of magic history. What will your place in magic history be? As always, thanks for watching, and until next time,